There are moments in life that cut so deep, so suddenly, that you don't even feel the wound at first. You just stand there, staring, numb, as your world starts bleeding out. That's how it felt when I saw the DNA test. It wasn't supposed to be there. I hadn't been looking for it. But sometimes, the truth doesn't wait for you to be ready. It just shows up, ugly and merciless, and shoves itself into your hands. It happened on a Sunday afternoon. I had been cleaning up the kitchen, sorting through the endless stack of mail and papers my wife, Lisa, always left lying around. Bills, catalogs, junk mail, and then an envelope. Torn open, carelessly tossed onto the counter, like it didn't mean anything. But it did. The words hit me all at once, like a freight train. Paternity test results probability of paternity, 0%. I read it again. And again. My hands started shaking. My stomach twisted into a knot so tight I thought I was going to be sick. 0%. I gripped the edge of the counter, my breath coming in short, sharp bursts. My son, my 9-year-old son, was not mine. The floor felt like it had been ripped out from under me. I had spent nearly a decade raising him, holding him when he was sick, teaching him to ride a bike, tucking him into bed every night with a kiss on the forehead, loving him with everything I had. And now, with one sheet of paper, all of it was a lie. I closed my eyes, trying to steady myself. But all I could see was Lisa, smiling, laughing, telling me she loved me, while knowing, the entire time, that she had betrayed me in the worst way possible. And she hadn't told me. She had taken this test, opened the results, and decided to keep it a secret. She was still deciding whether or not to tell me. Rage bubbled up in my chest, spreading through my veins like wildfire. She thought she had a choice. She thought she could control this. She had no idea what was coming. I needed to think. I needed to make sure that when I did, it would be the last conversation we ever had. For the next few days, I watched her. Really watched her. Not as my wife, but as a stranger, a woman I no longer knew. And once I saw her through that lens, I couldn't unsee it. The little smirks when she looked at her phone. The way she sighed in annoyance when I asked for her help with something. The fake concern in her eyes when she kissed me goodnight, as if she wasn't carrying a secret that had shattered my entire life. How long had she known? Since the beginning? Since our son was born? Had she looked at me every single day, knowing I was raising someone else's child, and just let me? I wanted to scream. Instead, I started digging. And what I found made my blood run cold. I barely slept that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling her warmth beside me. A woman I no longer recognized. The woman I had built a life with, shared a home with, had woken up next to for years. But now, every breath she took felt like a betrayal, every shift in bed like a reminder of the secret she was keeping. My son, no, the boy I thought was my son, slept just down the hall. I clenched my jaw, squeezing my eyes shut. It wasn't his fault. None of this was his fault. But Lisa? Lisa had robbed me of something I could never get back. I needed more. I needed to hear her admit it. So I set a trap. The next day, I called into work, telling them I wasn't feeling well. Lisa had no idea. I wanted her to think it was just another normal day. I waited until she left for a lunch meeting, which I now doubted was ever real. The moment she was gone, I grabbed her laptop and phone. The password was easy, our wedding anniversary. The irony almost made me laugh. Within minutes, I had access to everything. Emails, texts, bank transactions. And then I found it. A thread of emails from 11 years ago. A name I didn't recognize at first, Derek. Lisa had met him at a conference 2 months before she got pregnant. Their messages started out professional, then flirty, then explicit. 2 weeks before she told me she was pregnant, she wrote to him, "What if it's yours?" His response was quick. "You're married. It's not my problem." I gripped the edge of the desk so hard my fingers ached. So she knew. She had known from the very beginning. And she chose to let me believe he was mine. I kept scrolling. More recent messages. She never told Derek the truth. He was out there, living his life, completely unaware that he had a son. That's when I realized she had trapped me. She had seen the kind of man I was. Loyal. Committed. Someone who would never walk away from his family. So she made a choice. She let me raise another man's child while lying to my face every single day. My hands trembled as I closed the laptop. She stole my life from me. And now, I was going to take everything from her. That evening, I cooked dinner like usual. I set the table. I poured Lisa a glass of wine. She walked in with a bright smile, completely unaware of the hurricane about to hit her. Wow, she said, kissing my cheek. What's the occasion? I smiled back. It took everything in me not to snap her neck. I just wanted to do something nice, I said, sitting down. You've been working so hard lately. She looked relieved. Maybe she thought I had sensed something was off and was trying to make things right between us. The thought made me sick. Halfway through dinner, I set my fork down. I found something interesting. She glanced up, swallowing a bite of steak. Oh, I reached into my pocket and pulled out the DNA test. I placed it on the table between us, tapping my finger against the bolded text. Probability of paternity, 0%. Lisa's face drained of color. I leaned forward, lowering my voice to a whisper. Who is he, Lisa? Her hand trembled as she set her wine glass down. Gary, I. Who is he? She started crying. It's not what you think. I slammed my fist on the table so hard the plates rattled. Don't you dare lie to me again. She sobbed into her hands. Pathetic. I let her cry for a full minute before I spoke again. Calm. Controlled. Deadly. I know everything. I know about Derek. I know you were sleeping with him when you got pregnant. I know you asked him if the baby was his. I tilted my head, my eyes never leaving hers. And I know you decided to let me believe he was mine. She gasped, covering her mouth. Oh my God. Don't pretend to be shocked, I spat. You knew. You always knew. She reached for my hand. I jerked away like she was a disease. I was scared, she whispered. I didn't know what to do. And then you. You were just so happy, Gary. I thought. You thought what? I snapped. That I'd never find out? That I'd just keep playing daddy to another man's son while you went on lying to me? She shook her head, her whole body trembling. I never wanted to hurt you. I laughed. Cold. Hollow. Well, congratulations, Lisa. You didn't just hurt me. You destroyed me. She sobbed harder. Please. Please don't do this. We can fix this. There's no we anymore. Her head snapped up. Fear. That's when she saw the second envelope. I slid it across the table. She hesitated before opening it. Inside were divorce papers. I had already signed them. Her hands shook as she flipped through the pages. Bank accounts, emptied. House, transferred to my name. Every single shared asset, gone. I had spent the last week making sure she would walk away with nothing. Her voice cracked. You're leaving me? I stood up, grabbing my keys. No, Lisa. I turned to face her, my lips curling into a cruel smile. I already left you. She collapsed into her chair, sobbing uncontrollably. I didn't stay to watch. I walked out the front door, never looking back. I drove for hours, my mind racing, my emotions a tangled mess of fury and heartbreak. I thought about my son. No, Derek's son. I loved him. I always would. But he wasn't mine. And I couldn't stay. I pulled over at a gas station, breathing heavily. Then, slowly, I took my phone out. There was only one thing left to do. Derek needed to know. I found his email from the old messages and typed 3 simple words. It's about your son. Then I hit send.